Comrades, welcome to our channel. My most sincere apologies. I've been missing for quite some time. I've had a number of engagements to attend to that could not enable me to find time to share my views with you. But fortunately, I'm back, and I think that we'll be having some constructive engagements concerning our country. Today, I'm going to give a general overview of a series of topics that we will be discussing shortly, and that has to do with Museveni, America, and the war on terror. These series come against a backdrop of a very unfortunate incident that happened in Kasese, in Mpondwe, Rubirihia, where young students, lost their lives at the hands of terrorists. So it is against that backdrop that I want us to examine how these, incidents link up and, make sense in the war on terror and Museveni's role in that war. I will dare to say that there is a disturbing, relationship between terrorist acts in Uganda and Museveni's relationship with America. That whenever Museveni has a strained relationship with Americans, something that is related to the war on terror arises. Either it is an attack, it is bombs going off, or it has something to do with Somalia. And this has been going on for some time. Therefore, we cannot really pin it to coincidence. Let's go back to 2010. In 2010, January, the US Senate tasked the then Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, to prepare regular updates on the developments that were happening in Uganda relating to the preparations for the 2021 general elections. Hillary Clinton was tasked to give reports. First, it was said that she would give her first report after 90 days to Senate on how the process was, evolving. And she was specifically asked to report on how the Electoral Commission was independent, the independence of the Electoral Commission in its execution of its duties, the freedom of candidates and political parties and other actors to go out and interact with the population, the role of the military in the whole process, and many others, but specifically those were the areas that were spelled out. Hillary Clinton gave her first report, I think, around April. And it was a damning report on how the whole process was evolving. So she was supposed to give subsequent monthly reports on what was happening. She was required to give a monthly report on what was happening on ground. Then the Chadondo bombs went off, where people that had gone to watch the World Cup final were bombed. The reports of Hillary Clinton went up in smoke with those bombs. From then on, the US Senate and indeed the entire US administration went silent on the questions that they had been raising, the questions of a free and fair election. So Museveni had his way. Whether it was coincidence, that remains to be probed, like I said in our subsequent series. In 2012, the war in Eastern Congo, the M23 war, broke out. And a panel of experts was set up by the UN to come and probe what was happening on ground. That panel prepared a report that was to be tabled to the UN Security Council, which was implicating Uganda and Rwanda as the direct, financiers of the M23 rebellion. Amama Mbabazi, the prime minister at that time, went to parliament and announced that Uganda was pulling out of Somalia. And he was forthright with the reason why. He noted that whereas Uganda was playing a constructive role, helping in the war on terror, it felt betrayed by their international partners who were now pointing an accusing finger at the Kampala regime. And he stressed that if that report was to be tabled before the UN Security Council, so that a resolution is taken on what should be done to the countries that were supporting M23, Uganda would pull its troops out of Somalia. That report was never tabled. The Americans felt that Museveni's role in their war on terror was more important than raising questions about the DRC. So the relationship, went on. In 2016, after the elections and the killings that happened in Kasese, uncomfortable questions were being raised by the Americans about the situation in Uganda, about the unresolved election and the killings. General Katumba Wamala, who was the chief of the defense forces, announced that Uganda was pulling out of Somalia. And he stressed that Uganda had not gone to Somalia to become Somalis, and that therefore it was time that another country was formed, to carry on the war in Somalia. The Americans went quiet. They accepted to be blackmailed by Museveni because he was doing their job in Somalia. In 2021, we all know what happened. The killings that happened on the Kampala streets, the disappearances of very many of the National Unity Platform supporters, and Museveni was suffering a crisis of legitimacy in the international community because of that horrible election that he had, rigged. He was also, actually trying to solicit DRC to get his troops back, and they had stonewalled him, saying that they could only cooperate on sharing intelligence information. Then bombs went off in Kampala. Those bombs uh, literally it was one stone that killed two birds. First and foremost, the Americans and the international community went silent on the questions they had been raising of a stolen election, and the DRC overnight changed its opinion and allowed Ugandan troops to deploy in the DRC under the code name Operation Shuja, which is still going on. Now, in 2023, you have Museveni pulling ropes with the Americans over the anti-homosexuality law. You have the DRC reconsidering its position on Operation Shuja because they accuse Museveni of supporting M23, even when they are having joint operations in the Beni areas against ADF. Actually, they were saying that they may not have to extend the mandate of Operation Shuja. So you then have, an attack in Kasese. We wait to see whether the Americans will back off like they have always done, putting the war on terror above everything else. And we also wait to see whether the DRC will carry through their, proposal to terminate Operation Shuja. It's still too early. We are yet to hear from these two, centers to hear what happens. But the question is, are these coincidences that every time there are these questions raised, then bombs come to, blow them up and they go up in smoke? Now, all these boil down to Museveni's role in the perpetuation of American hegemony. And that is the series of topics that we shall be discussing in detail to come to a full understanding of exactly what is happening. Thank you for watching. I hope you will walk with me the journey of examining these issues. Thank you very much, and may God bless you.